Hello and welcome to Juicy Crimes. I have everyone's favorite surfing prosecutor, best-selling author, Matt Murphy. Welcome back to the Juicy Scoop, Juicy Crimes empire that you are a part of. How are you doing?
Good. I got in the water this morning, in fact. And,
really?
I don't think I'm worthy of that title anymore. Today I was floundering.
Really?
I fell on a wave, and there was like these two. They couldn't have been more than 12 years old, and they just gave me this look of disdain as they're paddling out, two Manhattan Beach kids. So my rickety old knees, but I'm still getting out there and doing it. But I was judged. I was judged harshly. Yeah.
Well, good for you for still doing it. We have lots of things to discuss that I wanted to get your expertise on that are some LA-based crimes. Let's talk a little bit about David. I've talked about it on the show. David is the singer, and this young girl, she was only 15 when her body was found in a Tesla in which he owned. What is going on with this case?
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, the LAPD is going through, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's, which is exactly what they should be doing. There's pressure on these high-profile cases to do something, to show some sort of progress. That's exactly the way investigations should not be investigated, right? Like you want methodical, very careful forensic and interviews and all that. The latest is the LA County coroner, because the body was dismembered, has been unable to list a cause of death. Okay, so
do we know how it was dismembered?
We do not know. Obviously, They know. We know that I have read, although it's unconfirmed, that they found her head. We know that at least one hand was there because the mother identified the tattoo, and portions, at least, I've heard of the torso. Maybe the whole body's in there, or maybe there's missing parts. We don't know. They obviously do. So the problem with that, of course, is determining cause of death on a heavily decomposed body like that can be forensically challenging. The good news for those who are interested in justice is that it matters, but it's not critical. It's really not. It's like I've done 5 no body murders where obviously we had no cause of death on those either. You can still prove it. This guy, you look at the photo there, it looks like a mugshot. And he hasn't been arrested yet. And there's a lot of really interesting behind the scenes stuff here, right? You got it. He has a song, I think it's his breakout. Now it's before she was killed. What is it? Romantic Homicide.
Yes. And the video is of a guy
looks like her
dragging a body and putting it in the trunk of a car. He was selling these white shirts with blood prints on it, which was a shirt that he wore in that video. There's so many there. His friends said that they thought they were told by him or his friends that this young girl, who they believed he was in a romantic relationship, was a 19-year-old girl going to USC.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have been talking or sort of critical of were the parents when she would go missing or what was going on. We heard from one of her friends when she was 13, and he said, well, she just didn't have a good relationship with her parents.
The parents here, she was a runaway, essentially. And it looks like she had left and gone home. These are sort of first-generation immigrant, very poor, and somehow she began this relationship with this guy. It's important to note she began it when she was 13. Now, we don't know for sure what the status was, but it sure looks like she was living with him. Part of the forensics that they're going to do is they're going to be looking for her DNA throughout the house, including the bedroom, right? And if her DNA is found on the pillow next to his, if he was dumb enough not to wash the sheets, and this guy's dumb enough not to have washed the sheets, that's going to be very good evidence. Now, 13-year-old, that's 288 of the California Penal Code. The line between 13 and 14 is a huge difference as far as any sexual contact. If you touch somebody who's 13 or younger, any physical contact at all, or if it's done online, even without touching them, if there's any sexual encouragement, that's a completed child molestation in the state of California. So if they had a romance, They don't even have to prove that he killed her. He's on the hook for that under 288 of the California Penal Code. And the statute is not run on that yet. So I guarantee they're looking hard at that. But they're going through all the forensics. They're going to look for her DNA. They're going to look for his DNA. But again, it's also interesting because we're talking about a Tesla, right? When the Teslas were all getting vandalized, you got cameras all over those cars. There's a thing called an EDR, an electronic data recorder, on pretty much all modern cars. But Teslas, they're great. I'm very curious to see if they got an image of the driver or the person who parked that car with her body in it. And of course, she didn't dismember herself. So the evidence here is overwhelming that she was murdered. There's no health issues that we're aware of. But can I rant for a second? Okay, so look. When you look at the video of her family, not even necessarily her mom, but she had people who loved her. And this guy's famous. He's a famous singer. All around Los Angeles County, there are moms like this or family members like this whose hearts are destroyed. They're broken when they lose a loved one to domestic homicide, to a gang homicide, to just whatever kind of homicide. What a mother goes through when her child has been murdered is apoplectic grief on another level. And all of these defund the police people, okay, everybody is like, oh, I saw a mean video where a cop was mean to somebody in a city I've never been, in a state I'll never go. I want to defund the police. The Los Angeles City Council bought into that bullshit hook, line, and sinker. And nobody thought, where does this go next? What happens when we actually defund the police? And the money comes out of three areas. It comes out of training, additional training for officers, which is kind of ironic when we want our cops to be better. It comes out of education programs like DARE, keep kids away from drugs or gangs. And the third area that's probably cut the most heavily when they defund the police is specialized units. Specialized units mean sexual assault. They've already restructured that at the LAPD, which is freaking maddening to me. They've cut back on that. That's rapists and child molesters and robbery homicide. Those are the units at the LAPD that we depend on to catch rapists, child molesters, and murderers. And they cut back funds because they had to. Right now, we have 8,600 sworn police officers at LAPD. That is the lowest number of sworn officers since 1995.
That's crazy.
It's beyond crazy. It is negligent. It is reckless. It is friggin' not right. And the families that suffer are the families who aren't connected to famous homicides like this. Right now, I like this police chief that we have right now. Mm-hmm. The families on cases that have no media, they are suffering right now because the bad guys are getting away with it because funds have been removed. And part of it is cutting back on funding. Part of it, Heather, is they can't meet their recruiting quotas because we have guys like George Gascon who came in. That was our former DA who just wanted to prosecute police officers. So if you want to be a police officer, the worst place you can do it is Los Angeles County because you've got, if you make a mistake, there's a thing out there right now that's being trotted out by guys like Erwin Chemerinsky and the hard left of California to prosecute police officers for policy violations. And it's called officer-created jeopardy. It basically means that if a police officer makes a mistake somewhere along the line, doesn't follow policy and procedure, and a gunfight ensues where somebody gets killed, a suspect is killed, even if the officer perceives an immediate threat of death from the person they shoot, they want to criminally prosecute that police officer. It is madness. Now, Nathan Hochman has come in. Nathan Hochman promised to right those wrongs, and we'll see. The verdict is still out on our current DA, Nathan Hochman, to see what he's going to do on those. So defund the police equals the big winners are rapists, child molesters, and murderers. And what it results in is in the broken hearts of mothers and fathers and loved ones whose loved ones are murdered and the bad guy gets away with it. And also additional victims of sexual assault because rapists and child molesters don't stop. They do not stop until they're caught. And when it's the math is pretty simple. When you remove resources from those units, less of those guys are going to get caught, which means more rapes, more child molests, and more murders. It drives me friggin' insane. So hopefully the pendulum is going to swing. But this is a case, for any of you that are watching, watch the clips of the parents. As much heat as they're getting, you will see actual human, cross-cultural, universal bereavement by those people because they lost somebody that they loved.
There has been some criticism about the parents. And I had mentioned, I said, there was a time that there was something called a runaway.
Right.
Where there was a time where people would live with like their best friend's family because they weren't getting along with their own family. Now, I would think most people wouldn't want to take that on because that could be like a legal thing or whatever.
Right.
Of like letting your friend, from 16, 17 live in your house. And it's the same thing with the runaways. I feel like everyone just thinks she must have been trafficked, or I wonder if this singer David was paying the family to let her hang out with him, or because there are people of not connections and not means, just was like, well, she's a teenager and she's run off and, she has a boyfriend. And I told her, like, be careful, don't get pregnant. I don't know. Like, it doesn't really mean that, but I don't know if she was a singer. Because at one point I was like, was this kind of like an R. Kelly thing where like R. Kelly would tell the parents, oh, your daughter's going to, and they had no idea that there was a thing going on with this man. They just thought, oh, R. Kelly's going to get our daughter to be a famous singer, and we don't know how to do that. I don't really like how she came about. And it's like, she looks young and she looks cute, but lovely, but like average. She wasn't a girl that was, I think, trying to look older. And that's another thing too, though. In my day, we would say we were older. Yeah. We would 13, 14, get all cute, walk up down Ventura Boulevard, tell my parents we were going to see a movie, and meet 20-year-old college guys.
Right.
And, like that can happen too.
Yep. Now, for 288, that section we were talking about, 13, doesn't matter. It's strict liability. If you touch a 13-year-old, you're on the hook, even if you think she's 20.
I mean, I'm not defending anybody in this,
sure.
But I'm just saying it is kind of, when I think about like, just even when you just look back at movies and how normalizing that was, that like an older guy, or even a song, like Don't Stand So Close to Me, but the teacher's pet, like all of that, like now you just look at it, you're like, I just can't believe that anyone ever thought that a girl that young, could somehow be responsible for this situation with such an older guy, that she could be wanting it, or that she could be able to give consent. Right.
And she can't under California law. And look, at Loyola, I don't know if you know about this movie. I got kicked out of my house when I was 17, and exactly that. Me and my dad had issues. He booted me, and I moved in with my friend's parents. Another Loyola kid took me in, and I lived at their house in the Palisades, which just almost burnt down recently. And you're absolutely right. Everything you said is exactly right. And you got a mom who's potentially working 3 jobs, who's got a strong-willed 13-year-old who thinks she's in love, who's moved into a place. We don't know any of that yet. The LAPD is trying to find it all out. All I know is there's no doubt in my mind she was murdered. Mm-hmm. Somebody did it. She's in the trunk of this guy's car. I mean, that picture right there, it's like I'm like a cat looking at birds behind a window. Like I would love to prosecute this case. Assuming there's enough evidence. But if
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking of is if it's not him. The only thing could be they're trying to determine a day of death or close to it, and if he was like in Europe, and
he's presumed innocent. We have to remember that,
so
and maybe he didn't. And I've had cases that look like one thing that all of a sudden it goes pear-shaped and it's completely wild and turns out to be something else. I'm open to all that.
Well, also because someone like him who's young, who's a singer, has probably a lot of entourage, either on the payroll or friends around that could have also been involved with her, or I think they're trying to figure out if someone, like, did he tell one of his friends to end it?
Yeah.
Like, do the hit, but he didn't do it himself because he was actually in Europe. Like, I think they're just trying to figure that all out. I don't know if you know an answer to this. I've only seen headlines, but there was something about this Texas home.
Right. So
what is that?
Well, there's 2 things. Number one, he got swatted. Who cares? That has nothing to do with the case.
What does swatted mean?
Swatted is when somebody calls the police 911 and says there's somebody at this address with a gun. It's an online gaming thing, and he started out as a professional online gamer before he became a singer.
Oh.
This David guy. Right. That was his first claim to fame, was he was a professional. I think it was Fortnite. But some game.
So that's where that surveillance is from the cops is because it wasn't a real thing. Somebody called on him.
Right. So that's called swatting. And it's an
Oh.
online gaming thing where you find out the address of your rival or somebody that has made
That's
you
a great
mad
way to
online.
waste cops' time.
Oh,
What
no,
the
no, no,
fuck?
no. It's a felony, I think, in every single state where you call and say,
Wow.
there's somebody on the lawn with a gun, and SWAT teams show up
Oh.
at the house. Right. And then so it's massively illegal, but that would have nothing to do with the case. And the more interesting thing for our purposes or our discussion is he transferred title about 2 weeks after her body was found into his mother's name. And that's interesting. That can be potentially what's known as consciousness of guilt, because behind the criminal investigation, I guarantee there's going to be a wrongful death suit here where her family comes after him. Guaranteed. There's some plaintiff's lawyer biding their time, waiting to see what happens with the police investigation. And that's probably going to be deemed what's known as a fraudulent conveyance. When somebody is trying to get rid of their assets in preparation for an oncoming civil suit, judges undo those transfers all the time. So chances are very good somebody said you gotta start stashing your assets because the family's about to sue you. Now that's me speculating. I'm not on the case. I don't know, but that's a very common thing that people do.
Now let's say even if it's found out that his crazy best friend did it,
right?
And that guy goes to prison for life and he's off the hook. Do you think that an attorney could still have a case to sue for wrongful death because she was in his world?
100%. And they will accuse him. He's got a lawsuit coming, whether it's criminal and civil, whether it's just criminal, just civil. He's got legal troubles, which is why that maneuver almost certainly was made. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody's going to show me some real estate transaction that was planned long before she disappeared. But look, there's another part of that also, and that is she'd been in the trunk for several weeks. And it's really like, that scene on like all the cop shows where it's like, when did the coroner say? It's like, 11:52 is the time of death. That's not a real thing. Okay. It's every time a coroner, in my experience, tries to estimate time of death, universally wrong. You will find other evidence that shows like a video when they're going in, almost always wrong because it's done on generalities. So when you're talking about heavily decomposed, there's no way they're going to be able to tell us exactly when she died or when she disappeared. You're right. It may coincide with some sort of alibi where he's in Europe or whatever, but it's going to be very, very difficult for them to place the time of death. But they will be able to tell the last time that car was driven because that's going to be in the EDR. And I would love to see those videos and see what appears on the LAPD. Certainly has that. They've been very good about keeping that quiet, as well as all of their interviews with his circle and all the orbiters and all the people around. But there's people that have explained the nature of their relationship. I guarantee it. And look, the robbery homicide division, when they are properly resourced and supported, they know what they're doing, and so do a lot of DAs in LA are very good at what they do. John Lewin is one, Jeff Lewin, his brother's another. They have over 1,000 lawyers in that office when it's properly staffed, which Gascon wasn't doing, who are hard-hitting professional prosecutors. But also we have a lunatic jury pool here in LA, and they're going to try to put this case together, and there's no statute of limitations on this. So from everything I've seen, they're taking their time. They should be. They're not bowing to public pressure. They shouldn't. And we'll see what
But is he in a place where they've taken the passport or whatever? Or do you know?
You know, this guy is not going to be able to run very far. And almost everywhere, unless he goes to Iran, Cuba, I don't want to give him a list, or Venezuela, pretty much everywhere it's called a blue notice where they put an Interpol alert out. And as we know from my Nayeri case, almost everywhere will extradite. Some places are easier than others, but there's no place he's going to be able to run and actually get away.
I have another question. Now, I know you were homicide, so I don't know if you can answer this or not. But when it comes to other cases in LA, like a fraud, like if someone was to fake a burglary and because they have a financial problem, and so they say, oh my God, somebody came, they took all my stuff, and the stuff is never found. It's never found in pawn shops or anything. And there's just surveillance of people in hoodies running out of the house. Is there a statute of limitations on that?
Yes, there's a statute of limitations on those types of cases. Generally, statutes of limitations, it's called tolling when it's in abeyance. The statute typically starts to tick when you know. So upon discovery. So I think that depending on what case or what kind of crime, it can be discovery of the identity of the person who did it. Sometimes you have to report it right away. But
like you report the crime,
right,
and it's like in the news,
right,
and then years pass.
Yeah.
Unless somebody came and was like, "Hi, I have to tell you what I did on this date. I was with this group. We were told to come, and we were told no one was going to be there. We took stuff. We didn't hurt anybody. We had a fake gun, and then we delivered the stuff to this person, and then that was it." And you like something like that. Can that still? So if someone set that up, okay, could it come crashing down like 5 years later, or is there a limitation to
It's very fact and crime specific, and every crime has a different statute of limitations, and so it depends. Generally, if you know who the suspect is, and the crime goes down, the statute of limitations will have run usually. Most felonies are 3 years. Most generic felonies are 3 years. Some are 5. Some sexual assault cases are 8. Some, if it's a life case, it can be up to 15. Or in murder, there is no statute of limitations. So it all depends. But in your typical fraud case, if you got an idea who the person was, action has to be taken. Typically, for a civil case, it's got to be within 2 years. If it's a felony, fraud, burglary, that sort of thing, it's typically 3 years for a felony.
So if it was like a fake, so the crime would be that you set up a fake robbery.
Mm-hmm. And did somebody get hurt in it?
No, nobody got hurt. But let's just say hypothetically, somebody set up a fake robbery, and they took a bunch of goods that were worth whatever. They went through insurance. Then they got the insurance.
So like an insurance fraud conspiracy type thing?
They got insurance money, but also those goods went away to whomever. And but maybe the person in the house always thought it was a real crime, but maybe somebody else set it up who also received the insurance.
It sounds juicy.
Like a spouse.
Wherever this is coming from,
I don't want to say.
Pretty good.
So let's say it's a spouse. Okay, so a spouse goes, "Go rob my house."
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't realize the wife was going to be home. And then the wife's like, so then she's traumatized. She thinks real robbers came to her house, though she wasn't hurt. Nobody was hurt, but they took all their stuff.
Boy, it's really interesting.
And so then they find out years later.
They took it with force or fear with her present?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a robbery. So that's a conspiracy to commit robbery, probably. Now, there might be a defense too. She wasn't supposed to be there, so we didn't actually conspire.
Yeah.
It's not, interesting that's like a law school hypo. It's not technically a burglary because the person who went in had permission from the homeowner, the husband who set it up, to enter the residence for the purpose of committing the insurance fraud. That's a really interesting question. There's any law professors on your viewers? I would love to hear from them on that. That's like a law school hypo.
So yeah, I just think this scenario is one that people talked about because it's like a reality show scenario. And I just thought with our, budget and cops that it just was one that there wasn't enough there to pursue. And it was just a lot of conspiracy theory of why this looked strange. They took her phone and then she said, "Please let me have my phone." And so then they see them leaving and then with their bag of goods, like they put it in like a pillowcase or whatever. And then they just lay the phone down. And I thought, well, either they're not experienced or they think there's a tracker on the phone and they don't want the phone. And isn't that nice that they didn't just chuck it? Mm-hmm. They left it there for her to call the police or call her husband. People always thought that was strange.
Yep.
But then as the years passed, I was like, well, since no one got murdered, is this even something juicy? Unless one of those people, if this in fact wasn't a real deal. And it wasn't just robbers that just thought this looks like a rich house. Let's try to go at 10 at night and get it. Then do people, is it like it's not a cold case, like someone didn't die. So is there like a big, what's the goal to do that to try to find the truth?
I'm going to call it, if I had to make the ruling.
Yeah.
That since that's a conspiracy, the statute's going to run upon discovery of the conspiracy. In other words, if they just think it's a robbery in the house and everybody's like, oh my God, later, when they discover that it's the husband that actually set the whole thing up, I think the statute runs upon date of the discovery. That would be if I'm the judge on that,
So
that's
it
the
would
way I'm
start.
calling it. So it
like
starts
if somebody
upon discovery.
walked in right now and said, I have to tell you what I did.
Right.
I was with my boyfriend. I did this weird crime and it's always bothered me. I'm afraid it's going to come back. And then that's when it starts, that day.
Yeah. Now it's, again, super fact specific. I think different judges may rule differently on that. But it's from typically statutes are going to run. Now they know she was robbed. So the robbery is going to run from the day that it happened. But the conspiracy, that probably runs from the date that the conspiracy is discovered. So from the date that the person comes in and says it. But again, like going back to what we were saying, a specialized unit at LAPD would be fraud. That's probably the first one. I guarantee, I don't know, but I know they took the sexual assault unit there, took massive restructuring hits because of all this defund the police bullshit. So I just guarantee the fraud unit probably took bigger hits, less detectives to begin with. So if that happened in LA County, good luck.
Yeah, they're probably going to all be fine. Okay. Yeah. So this is a crazy crime. This lady's called the butt lady, and she would go and give people like Brazilian butt injections. And this one, I think you know the story, but so her name's Libby Adam, and she's been convicted of second-degree murder after a Malibu actor died from silicone injections she administered. And prosecutors said that Libby Adam continued performing unauthorized butt injections despite a 2024 conviction for an involuntary manslaughter after another client died from the procedure. And is that insane? So someone already died.
Right.
And how was she out if someone already died?
So here's the way it works. And this is another really interesting legal area. You have a thing called, for any murder case, you pretty much for the last 400 years, you have to establish what's called malice aforethought. That means basically intent to kill, not to overcomplicate it, intent to kill. But what if you have an accident where somebody is so reckless that they consciously disregard the safety of other people? And we have a thing in the law, again, hundreds of years old, known as implied malice, where it's like if you accidentally kill somebody and it's normal negligence, like you're on your cell phone in your car and it's just a really bad accident, that's different than somebody who is consciously aware of the danger that they're doing and does it anyway. A classic example of that are 5th or 6th time DUIs. Somebody that's been through the system, knows how dangerous it is, goes to the Mothers Against Drunk Driving panel, listens to survivors of horrific. It's in their brain. They've been taught drinking and driving is inherently dangerous, and they get super hammered and get behind the wheel for the 3rd time, and they kill a kid on a bike. That's where a case where somebody has consciously disregarded, and so we imply the malice aforethought. So the mental state necessary to commit a murder is there. So in this case, I mean, look at that face. In this case, you've got a woman who you can run with. I didn't have any idea how dangerous this was. I'm injecting silicone. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm advertising or however I'm getting paid to do this, but I really didn't know because I'm an ignorant fool. Please forgive me for killing this poor woman. That is an involuntary manslaughter. Okay, so she gets prosecuted for that. But now that excuse you get one time. That defense exists one time. The I didn't know how dangerous this was exists once. Once she's convicted of that, and an invol, by the way, why was she out? Because an involuntary manslaughter, Heather, is in the state of California, second-degree murder, okay? You get a parole hearing now, current state of the law with our legislature, in 12 years, okay? So you get 85% good time, work time for 15 to life. Life used to mean life. In California now, there's a big push by our legislature to release everybody. So the cost of a human life for second-degree murder is basically 12 years. Okay, so then you have voluntary manslaughter. That's 11, but you're going to do even less good time, work time, or you're going to get more good time, work time. You're going to do less time. And then you have an involuntary manslaughter, which essentially is a criminal accident. Okay, so that's how that works. So she's going to be somebody, you're going to be out in 4 years or less on what we call them invols or an involuntary manslaughter. So she's just not going to do that much time. And that's the max that somebody's going to do. Now it's different. Now she got convicted under this implied malice theory. She was so reckless because she knew that the stuff she was doing can kill another human being, and she kept doing it. And it's like, I mean, as you hear that, or as your viewer hears that, it's like I'm my heart's hardened over the years, but I still have the capacity to feel really sorry for people when they're stupid, right? And I think we all kind of have some of that. It's like this poor ignorant lady, like she killed somebody, she's learned her lesson. Any decent human being is going to stop injecting silicone into people's butts, right? And by the way, I looked up butt doctor.
Yeah.
And the stuff that comes out when you Google that, so if anybody gets into my computer, it's her fault for telling me that we were going to do this. The stuff that appeared on my computer, and it's all about weird things that go up people's butts, and it's the butt doctor, it's ER doctors, it's YouTube after YouTube after YouTube going, I found this up somebody's butt. So anybody, if there's ever a search warrant on my computer, it's Heather McDonald's fault that all that stuff is on there.
Yeah, definitely clear that up. Yeah. Yeah, I think what happens with this, and this is the woman, the actress, I think, who passed. I'm thinking.
Yeah, she was ER. She was in a bunch of stuff.
This girl was in ER, and she was, living with her husband, and so he's suing her. Good luck. I don't think she has a lot of money.
No, she has nothing.
But these things, people would have Botox parties. I think there was a story where there was someone doing that with Botox, and it was Lionel Richie's wife at the time would have like Botox parties, but when Botox was kind of in the more earlier stages, and people would go and come, and someone also will say, "No, I've got somebody. No, it's awesome," and I'm sure besides the two people that died, maybe there's a lot of other people walking around that like their ass. That was like, oh, she was half the price and she was great. I don't think she only did two people and they both died. Like, obviously she did other people. And so unfortunately, yeah, that can happen. That's why you go to a real doctor's office. And I've heard some weird stuff too. You know how people are like going to other countries for plastic surgery?
Yeah.
That now these, again, might not be true stories or whatever. A lot of people go, have the greatest experience, whether it's Tijuana or Turkey or whatever, and they get, a fourth of the price and everything. But then problem is if they come back and they have a complication, certain doctors don't want to work on you. Just like if you started a kitchen with a contractor and he disappears, other contractors are like, I don't know what shoddy work this is.
Right.
The other thing is the stealing of organs that happened.
I didn't know you were going there.
Like, have
so
you
somebody
heard
goes to
of
get
anything?
like I have not. I heard
you're
it first
out,
time in Juicy Scoop. It makes sense.
Okay, so
they
out,
harvest an organ.
You're getting this stuff, and somehow they take like a kidney that you don't even know is done. I mean, this could be like an urban myth story or whatever, but like that, then you get back and you thought you got a tummy tuck, you love your tummy, all this stuff, and then someone's like, you get a body scan, and they're like, oh, so when did you donate your kidney? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And they took a kidney. Have you ever
I don't know. I mean, nothing surprises me anymore.
You're not going to be able to figure that out.
Well, and you're not going to be able to sue anybody. There's going to be no investigation. You're going to be out of kidney. But I spent a lot of time in New York.
Yeah.
And a lot of the New York, I just heard somebody talking about doing something like that where everybody flies to South Korea. There's some procedure. A bunch of these like Manhattan moms, they were half joking, and they've all got tons of dough too. So
yeah.
But so you're going to Southeast Asia essentially, right? So South Korea. What I have heard, probably urban myth as well, is that they execute people in China all the time and just harvest their organs. Like all their bad guys, they actually have a functioning death penalty in China. Not that I'm advocating for anything similar here, but and they apparently. There's plenty of kidneys in Asia from Chinese prisoners. Probably also an urban myth, but they've got a pretty steady supply, I think, in some of those Asian countries for their executed prisoners.
Well, they did just arrest this woman who was like the most diabolical woman that was luring pregnant women and then would.
Oh wow! In China.
No, in Mexico.
Ugh.
It was like one of the worst criminals in Mexico, and would take the babies and either give them up for adoption or sell them or whatever. But then also the pregnant women, they would take their organs. So this is a real case.
Yeah,
but
I don't mean to laugh. It's
this did not
horrific.
get
It's
a lot of
yeah.
a lot of press, but it was one of
Yeah.
those like horrific cases where this was like the most evil woman doing this in
The
Mexico.
world gets weirder and darker all the time, doesn't it?
Okay, now let's talk about a very, very sad case. This is the case of the 4 Pepperdine students who were walking along PCH. They were seniors, and they were killed by this guy who was driving his car, and his name is Fraser Boehm. He's young, and he's only 23, and a good-looking kid. Of course, all the victims were beautiful as well. Can you tell us a little bit about this, because he wasn't drunk?
Right. So this goes right in line with what we were talking about. This is the same theory. This is an implied malice murder. That's the theory. So I've done a bunch of these. I prosecuted a bunch of these murders, and I had one pretty similar to this. It was a guy who was arguing with his wife. He had been drinking, but he gets out. The defense, it was against Christopher Darden, actually. He was the defense lawyer on it. They're at the Irvine Spectrum. He gets mad. He's arguing with his wife. There's some DV, domestic violence, going on in the car. An off-duty Secret Service agent sees it, gets out, says, "Ma'am, can I help you?" Typical domestic violence. F you, mind your own business, from her. They switch. She was in the driver's seat. Now he's in the driver's seat, and he takes off up the 405 freeway at 150 miles an hour.
While she's in the car.
While she's in the car. And what he does is he winds up taking out a family going to a 13-year-old's birthday party. Killed a 10-year-old boy, permanently disabled a 13-year-old girl who's in the car. Mom died, husband permanently disabled. It's just carnage. And it was a very similar defense. I was running from the guy. This guy pulled a gun on me, which he didn't do. And Darden was defending it. And I charged him with murder for that. He had no priors. He had no prior DUIs, exemplary life up to that point.
But in your case, were they able to prove that he had alcohol?
Oh, yeah, he had alcohol. But this is more of a speed contest type. That's another kind. The Too Fast and Furious. And, I looked at this, and ironically, this was very close. This accident is very close to where Paul Waller's beach house was, from the Too Fast and Furious, right? Who by all accounts is a really good man on many different levels.
Wait, wasn't he the one that was also had?
I'm sorry, Paul Welker was his name.
Paul
Walker.
He died.
Yeah, he died in a Porsche with a guy that was basically showing off the speed
right.
of his car. Right, tragic, and he was a good man. But this was very close to his beach house, ironically. But so in a speed contest type case, and this is something that happens in Southern California. You get these idiots who are racing, often young, often good looking, often pretty universally stupid, who drive too fast, and some poor mom in a minivan gets killed because somebody's racing. That's the theory here. Now, this guy was apparently going, the EDR, that electronic data recorder we were just talking about, in his car, the BMW he was in, had him going 104 miles an hour on PCH. Now, you've driven PCH a million times, 104 miles an hour. So, and killed these 4 poor, innocent young women with their whole lives ahead of them. I look at this guy, he's a good-looking guy. A lot of people see somebody cute. I look at that guy, that's sad. I was a young man. I drove up and down PCH all the time when I was in high school and I grew up. 104 miles an hour is the prosecution theory, consciously disregarding the safety of everybody else on the road. He's doing just what my defendant did against Christopher Darden, trying to blame a road rage incident. I don't believe that in this. It's not my case.
So
I don't know.
He's saying there was a road rage thing, and he was trying to get away from a crazy person, and
right.
That's why he was speeding, and
right.
obviously didn't mean to run into these girls.
That's right. Now, most jurors, I think, are going to take the position that, like, you're in a beef with another driver, you can pull over and yell, you can flip him the bird, you can call 911, which he didn't do. There are a whole host on your little RoboCop list of options that come down before you get excused for driving 104 miles an hour. And I think it's bullshit anyway. I think the DA's office thinks it's bullshit. But even if it was true, the fact that he doesn't want to take a beating from another driver, and so far right now, I don't think there's anything about guns or any actual legitimate fear that they've at least that they've released so far. Maybe that claim will change. 4 beautiful young kids lost their life because this guy was going 104 miles an hour. So that's kind of your classic implied malice, second-degree murder. Now, in mine, just so you know, on mine, we convicted mine. And Chris Darden, we got along fine. We got along fine. OJ was no fluke. We got along fine. But I felt the prosecutor's job was to do justice, and I asked the court to run the multiple murder convictions on my case, to run them concurrent rather than consecutive. So he got credit for all the murders, and he was released after 17 years in custody. I think it was 17, and he's lived a model life ever since. So,
but he did do 17 years in prison.
Yeah, he did 17 years. I mean, and the thing is that the 13-year-old girl suffered severe head injuries and will be disabled for the rest of her life. The father who was driving the car lost his wife, lost his 10-year-old son, and his injuries were. I mean, I'll share this with you. I went in and they had to go in, and he was so severely injured. It was pretty miraculous that he lived, and it was like almost like this big spandex wetsuit thing, and I'm like, can I see your injuries to see, because great bodily injury was one of the special allegations on the case, and he's like, of course, and he lifted up his shirt and undid this thing. And what they do on that, in case they have to go back in for sepsis and he had multiple infections, is they separate your muscles. So it was just his organs pressing against his skin, and it was like something you'd see in high school. It's like an anatomical display. I mean, you could literally see his stomach and his intestines through his skin. So the injuries were so horrific and so severe that, the guy did 17 years, and it's a really tough thing to balance.
So what do you think is going to happen with this? So they were saying that his attorney filed a 55-page motion challenging details from an April hearing and pushing to dismiss the 4 murder counts leveled against her client, because he was slapped with murder and vehicular manslaughter charges for 4 people. I mean, so if he gets convicted, wouldn't he have to do life, or they would do it like you said? So wait, consecutively means, like, let's say you get 20 years for each person. That means you're doing 80.
He would do 4 years times, he would do 12 years times 4 before he would be eligible for a parole hearing.
And then concurrent is you got 12 years times 4, but you'll do it all in 12 years.
Right.
Okay.
And it's 15 to life is the number. That's the sentence for a second-degree murder. So the court will have the option of stacking all those. What I don't like about what the LADA's office did here strategically, and this is prosecutors differ on this. I would just charge murder. I wouldn't charge in the alternative a gross vehicular manslaughter, because call it for what it is and have your theory, and then by doing it that way, you're telling the jury even we don't know what it is. It's like, so when the defense lawyer gets up, they're going to go, this is a gross vehicular manslaughter and a murder for the exact same death, means they don't even know what it is. So it's like, you almost build in a reasonable doubt argument on the second-degree murder. If you think it's a second-degree murder, you go balls to the wall, you charge second-degree murder, and then you go and you prove that it's a second-degree murder. And then the jury has one option. They convict of the murder or they walk them. And it's kind of high stakes. It takes a little more fortitude to do it that way, but I think that's a better way to go.
Yeah, so, this is reminding me of the Rebecca Grossman case.
Right. Now, Rebecca Grossman, very similar.
That is where this wealthy woman was speeding down in Westlake Village, and a family was going through a crosswalk, and she killed 2 brothers. She's
racing her boyfriend. Having fun with her car, killed 2 people.
In her defense, they tried to think, well, maybe it's really his fault or something. That was kind of a weird. I mean,
Rebecca Grossman was incredibly arrogant and obnoxious too. She came off as a horrible human being who had zero remorse. She went all in on social media on that. There were a lot of people in the community. I have a friend who lived right down the street from her who knew her socially before all that happened and was appalled at her absolute lack of any accountability afterwards. So. This guy.
This is my question, though. Like, okay, let's say you are Rebecca Grossman.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there's this other side of it where, she wore this necklace with the 2 kids in it, and she was a mother. And I can imagine, no matter how ritzy and selfish person you are, whether you're this kid or anything, or or the person you prosecuted, it's got to be just my God, to live with that. Just to live with that, to be like, I can't believe I did this.
Didn't she blame the victims in that though? Didn't she?
Well, I'm just saying, no, I'm just playing devil's advocate
Sure.
in the sense that if you're facing life in prison or 25 years for a woman who's like, close to 60, when you're working with your defense team, I mean, don't you have to pull out all the stops? No. Think they were trying to say no. So, because I know they were trying to say this particular coroner, there's been accidents, like try to maybe blame the city on it. Just point at anything so that when the jury is faced with it, they can say, okay, there were accidents on this coroner, or.
Right. The problem is that when you talk about implied malice, you're talking about that it becomes relevant. The person's state of mind becomes relevant. Like, is this the type of person that will consciously disregard the safety of other people? So when you go online and you start blaming the victims, that becomes admissible against you, that you really don't care. So I got a guy that keeps popping up in my Instagram algorithm, and his whole catchphrase is, he'll talk about different scenarios and he'll say, number 1 rule in life, don't be a dick. And so that's a situation of don't be a dick. And there's the underlying problem, crime. Like in my guy, he had lived an exemplary life, came from really, he was impoverished as a little kid. He was adopted. Like, he had a really interesting life. He'd made good, just got promoted. That's why he was drunk. They were celebrating this win. Gets in an argument with his wife, like all of that. And I'll tell you, there was a moment in that. So Christopher Darden comes in, we did a preliminary hearing. So I'm the prosecutor, and my job is to do justice. It's not to get the maximum. It's not to get a conviction. It's to do justice and try to balance justice for the accused, and also this poor family that was devastated by this. So there's no exact formula there, and it's hard. You have to balance the right and wrong, but you have to maintain an open mind and fairness at all times to the defendant. Okay. And we finished the prelim, and there's nobody, and he's in custody. There's nobody to impress anymore. Judge is off the bench. Judge binds it over. His lawyer is basically walking out of the courtroom, and he's waiting for the bailiffs to transport him. So this is real. There's nobody there. And I'm packing up my briefcase, and the guy breaks down sobbing. And that was incredibly significant in his case, because the prosecutor, me, saw that, and it's like, okay, that's an actual human being who feels horrible. That's genuine remorse. So when the trial was done, and it was a fantastic judge, his name's Greg Prickett. I tried more heavy-duty case in front of him than any other judge, and he is the best of the best. But he was also a really good man, and he knew he'd probably been struggling with it too. Like, do we go full consec or do we run concurrent? And he asked me, he didn't ask Darden. And he's like, and I'd known him for years. He's like, what do you think? And I'm like, Judge, I've been wrestling with this for 2 years. I think we go full concurrent, not consec. We let them run concurrent. And we give this guy another chance at life after 17 years. And he'd been in a couple of years at that point. And that's the job of a good prosecutor. You're supposed to wrestle with that stuff. You're supposed to lose sleep over it. With a good judge, they open it up, and they're doing the same thing. What is the appropriate sentence? Rebecca Gross was an asshole publicly.
So do you think if right off the bat she was just...
That social media stuff she did was, I saw that, and I had this friend of mine who lives literally about 4 houses away. I don't know if I should say who she is. It's Hungry Girl. She's a very famous author. She's awesome. Yeah. My friend Lisa, and she would send me these posts because they were friends, and she would send me these posts, and then she'd send me these.
What are the kind of things that she would post?
Basically, and we're going back a ways now, yeah. But essentially, none of this is my fault type stuff. And you don't, like, if I watched that, I saw some of those articles thinking, what are her lawyers thinking here? Like, yeah. You tap that down. You don't go, it's kind of like, we're seeing this, I just listening, I was coming in and I just listened to some political commentary. And I'm not political. I don't comment on this stuff. But Letitia James has been indicted. And she won't shut up either. And somewhere there's some lawyer
What is she indicted for?
pulling for mortgage fraud, which is exactly what she prosecuted Donald Trump for.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's a glass house, lady.
Yeah.
And but and the politics can go back and forth. Not taking a position on it, so save the hate on my Instagram. But she keeps talking about it. She keeps making public statements denying it, and somewhere there is some defense lawyer, I guarantee you, who is losing their mind over that because she won't shut up. When you were charged with a crime, shut the F up. Like, if there's one rule, is don't be a dick like my Instagram guy keeps saying, but don't make statements. Just shut up. Shut up, because everything you say as a criminal defendant with a pending case is absolutely carte blanche going to be admitted against you. In your
I also
trial.
think in saying that, because my sister and her husband are defense attorneys for criminal defense and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times when there's like, let's say an accident happens between families that knew each other, or down the street, your teenage son hit somebody, and then the victims' families are like, and we never even heard from them. We never even
Right.
heard a sorry.
Right.
And I remember my sister saying, yeah, but that is what we tell them to do. Like,
Right.
they might want to, they might be crying every night and want to go there and just roll up and but like that, oh, you're making about you. Like, whatever, you can't really win in those cases.
Right.
You are to stay silent, but that also can work against you, it seems like, in a court of public opinion.
Sure, in a court of public opinion, but there's a procedural place to do that. It's called a statement in allocution, and that's at sentencing. There's a place to do that at sentencing where you're not admitting guilt. That's the place. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who go online and say, it wasn't my fault, or I'm being persecuted, or it's all a misunderstanding. I didn't intend to sign that document saying that I was going to live there. Like, you can't, like, having statements made by a client during pending charges is always a mistake. I mean, there's probably an exception or someplace. There's some case out there where somebody can go, oh, what about this? As a general rule, no decent defense lawyer, including your sister, is ever going to let their client go on frickin' social media and talk shit about the victims or make any statements about the case. You absolutely open the door to all of that being admitted against you. It's like anything you say can and will be used against you, public opinion or no. And the thing is, if you're going to do that, you should be expressing remorse. I feel horrible about this. This was a terrible accident. Like, make it consistent with being a human and not some like social climbing a-hole that is wealthy and can't be held responsible. And
she did get convicted, and I just don't know where that is. I think she's still, I guess she's appealing it. I don't know.
Yeah, they'll appeal it, but I think she's already been sentenced.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Okay, Diddy they're saying now Diddy, his attorney is Tenny Gregaris filed a letter asking the judge to suggest that Diddy go to Fort Dix because there is to address drug abuse issues.
Yeah, so that's this is actually interesting. So Diddy got 4 years. He's already got over 13 months in. And I actually had a long discussion with Mark Aragos on this with Megyn Kelly and Mark and I. And essentially the way this works is there's a thing called the RDAP program, and that they run that at Fort Dix. Okay, and RDAP is a residential alcohol and drug treatment. I absolutely agree that Diddy, according to his own admission and from the videos that we all saw, he could use a little drug rehab, no doubt about that. So that's a program that's available. RDAP will shave up to 12 months off of your sentence. So he got a 4-year sentence, so he's got 13 months that he's already served, full day-for-day credit for that 13 months. RDAP will remove another 12 months off that if they send him to Fort Dix. And then he's looking at, typically they will release, I had a federal guy, a fraud guy that I actually defended, and they will give you halfway house access, usually about 6 months before your sentence is up. So RDAP plus the CTS, the credit time served, plus the halfway house, he's looking at about, I'll bet you he goes to a halfway house in less than 18 months. And that's if he goes to Fort Dix, because he can participate. He'll get a full 12-month reduction based on RDAP.
I've talked to 2 people, a man and a woman, Sherry Papini, one of them, Ian Beck is the other, who said, I think it was Ian, that the halfway house is oftentimes way worse than the prison.
Yeah, it sucks.
That they would have rather just been in the prison because that's like a whole racket. And, now these weird people have access to you and you're like safer in the prison.
No, that's right. That's absolutely right. And it depends on the case. It depends on the client. It depends on all that. But then again, when they release you, if they say, "Hey, you're going to halfway house," it's not really up to you,
right?
Yeah,
But I mean, I thought that was sort of surprising.
No, that's 100% right. Yeah, I've had clients that have gone up to federal prison, and the program is not bad. They get plenty of yard time. They're in there with, actually, if it's white collar, some interesting people who've gotten in trouble. Some of them are mobsters. It's not bad. And then they wind up with some friggin' a-hole roommate in the halfway house, and it sucks. And the rules in the halfway houses suck. And it's a common thing. So whoever told you that is absolutely right.
Where are we with the Menéndez brothers? Is there ever a chance that they could get out now with the latest situation?
The current procedural posture they're in, they will get out. Okay, they can apply for an abbreviated time. They each got I think it was a 36-month denial, right? I think is what it was, or is it a 3-year?
I don't know. Explain where it is, because I don't really understand.
So essentially, they each got parole hearings, and they came in the BPT, which is the Board of Prison Terms. And I used to do these for 17 years, and I've been to the prisons, each prison where those guys I've been in the rooms.
I have a question. As a prosecutor, because you're in the room, have you ever gone, I think this person should get out?
100%. Absolutely.
You have?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You go in. Tell you the ones
so
that
it's not always that you're trying to keep them in because you put them there.
No, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand. Your job as a prosecutor is seeking justice. Okay, so you got to call it as you see it. And there are murderers who come in, and I'll tell you the quintessential example are little poo-butt gangsters who, when they're 18 and they're riding in the backseat of a car and they do a drive-by and some rival gang member gets killed. And they're 18 years old, and 25 years later, they're up for parole. And you see these guys that walk in that weren't psychopaths. And a lot of gang members are friggin' nightmare monsters that should never get out. But a lot of these guys, when they're young, they're making stupid decisions. That's where the girls are. That's where their friends are. And then they're involved in one of these things. And these guys come in, they're 45 years old. They're respectful. They've programmed in prison. They've gotten out of all the gang politics. Their highest ambition in life would be to have a beer and watch a Laker game on their couch after a hard day's work. And for a lot of those guys, I looked across the table and would think, not only would I have no problem if this guy moved in next door to me, he'd probably be a pretty good neighbor. So 100%, I've gone in there and I've done that, and I have conceded on that, and that's the job as a prosecutor. However, there are plenty of guys who come in that are full of shit, like Lyle and Eric Menéndez. They've never been honest about what they did. They lied to everybody. They lied from the 911 operator. They lied to their family at the funeral. They have lied, and the people who, and I think it comes from a good place, and I know this is a little controversial. I got heat last time we talked about this.
Okay.
Look, people see cute boys on a Netflix special and think it's real. These guys had cell phones in prison. Eric was a freaking gang member in prison. Cute little boy in the sweater vest. He joined a fucking gang in prison. And I know I can say that because I saw this on the cup. I wasn't sure if I could say the F word. It's right here on the cup. Joined a fucking prison gang, and they are vicious.
How long ago?
Oh, years ago.
Like in the beginning.
Years ago. And Mark Aragos, look, he's a friend of mine. I like Mark. Mark and I did cases together back in the day, and before he got famous and long before I had any media exposure. I know Mark. Mark's a true believer in his own cases. But he's a good guy. He's done a great job for them. But these guys are monsters who, and look, if you believe that they were molested by Jose Menéndez, you don't get a free murder on the mom, guys. That's a living, breathing human being who's entitled to her own right not to be shotgunned to death in her friggin' living room by her son. And I'll tell you, they weren't indicted on this. This was a murder for financial gain. all day long. Since we're talking about habeas, that means stuff outside the record. They did it to get to the money. And all of those sessions with Dr. Oziel, the psychologist, nothing about sexual abuse came up. Eric was 18. He was a professional athlete. I think he can handle himself against his mom. And Lyle wasn't even living in the home anymore.
So
Yeah.
just going to
That's
where?
my rant.
No, but where does it go for their future? So in 36 months they can go back.
So no, less than 36 months. They'll petition. I think they get 18 months, and they can petition for another parole board, another hearing. But these guys had cell phones in prison. Okay, you or I have cell phones. Here's my cell phone. We all have cell phones everywhere we go. It means nothing in prison. A cell phone is a freaking deadly weapon. You can order hits, you can intimidate witnesses, and they kept getting caught with cell phones. Lyle called CrimeCon from prison and spoke to
That was
a big
a TV
group.
show.
CrimeCon is a true crime event every year that they put on.
But what year did he call CrimeCon? Like 20 years ago, or like recent?
No, he called CrimeCon. I think it was 8 months ago. It's when it was either Orlando or Tennessee. It was less than 2 years ago.
On a cell phone, not on a prison phone.
Called and talked to audience people. These guys, and if you cannot follow the rules in prison, and look, one of the first things for release that you need to be able to do, it's called insight. It's literally, that's the word they describe it, and it's basically has the inmate come to terms with what they did, and are they freaking sorry for it before we release you out into society. My dad was molesting me, and I'm not responsible for this, and I had to ambush my parents because I was afraid for my life, is such bullshit. And any rational parole board member is going to look at that and go, okay, this is not true. And that's going to be, they had a lot of due process in those things. These things went for hours. These were like 8-hour long hearings for each one of them. For all the other guys waiting in the hallway for their parole hearings, if they came in and said, I'm innocent, and oh yeah, I know they're called 115s, they're called CDC 115s, that's major rule violations. When you get caught with a cell phone and you keep getting caught with cell phones, it's not like they returned that cell phone. He kept getting caught with cell phones. Eric Menéndez joined a prison gang. He's in a San Diego prison. They are notorious. They are incredibly violent. And he's a documented member of a prison gang, guys. A cute little guy in a sweater vest.
But no, when he was young or now, he's still in the prison gang?
I don't know when he's going to claim he did it. There's no such thing as a current gangster, by the way.
Okay.
Everybody, so I used to be a gangster. I used to run with them. It's like he joined a frickin' prison gang. And
But couldn't the argument be because he was a rich white boy, that was the only way to
protect him? The argument could be aliens
him?
came down and made him do it.
But
Yeah,
saying,
it's
isn't
all,
that going to be the only way that you could protect yourself?
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Okay.
If you are behaving yourself, here's another thing. We see the prison movies, and it's like, and we've all watched those, and it's like, oh, they're going to take a kid and they're going to put him on the yard with all the hardcore guys. That's not the way it actually works. You go through a thing called a classification process. Used to be at a prison in Riverside. Now I think they do everything through Donovan in San Diego, which is where at least one of them had his parole hearing. And they do a 90-day diagnostic and classification. And if you are not a risk of violence to other staff, you're going to go, there's levels. Those are all level 4 yards, they call it. Level 4 is where it's like prison for prisoners. That's where all the gang guys are. That's where the heavy guys are. Otherwise, you go into a level 3 or a level 2, and those guys get parole hearings. And the guys with parole hearings, they don't want to get in fights. They don't want to get into the politics. They don't want to do drugs because they're not going to get paroled. So there are prisons all around California, and I know because I've personally been in every one of them, where you walk in, they're not fighting in the freaking chow line because they want to get out. And if they get in fights, or if they cause shit, or if they have knives or any of that stuff, they get their CDC 115s and they're lifers, but they don't get paroled. Okay, so he could have done that. The reason he wound up on hardcore yards is because they can't follow the rules. Because they're entitled, they're rich, the rules do not apply to them. And with these two guys, the rules have never applied to them. And that's why they got in trouble. And they walked in with a whole bunch of CDC 115s. And the idea that I was so, look, they shouldn't have gotten a parole hearing at all. They should both, LWOP was an appropriate sentence, life without possibility of parole. But the fact that they got a parole hearing, the Board of Prison Terms, of all things, restored sanity on this and said, you guys are both, you don't follow the rules in prison. We can't trust you to follow the rules in society. You're murderers and you're still being dishonest about it. No, you're getting a 3-year denial. Like that was, that restored my faith a little bit in the California criminal justice system. I didn't expect it from them. I expected it from the judge. And by the way, Nathan Hochman, who's the current DA, everything he has said on that was right. Everything that he has come out and said publicly about them not admitting it, about them, everything he has said has been exactly right. And at least for one more week, I will continue to support Nathan Hochman until we get into a cop case that I'm defending. Okay,
well, we're very excited because you can announce you're writing a second book.
Right. And I just got an offer. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that yet, but I got an offer from Disney for book number 2, and this one is going to be it's going to be the same format. It's my personal experience in the homicide unit. Only this time I prosecuted 14 serial killers, including the Golden State Killer, and Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. But I had 12 others that nobody's ever heard of before. And so it's going to be my first person, like my learning experience about serial killers and what I learned as I went through the homicide unit. And I'm going to talk about first case, second case, third case, and some of the things I saw and observed. And I think it is an absolutely engrossing subject matter. I've been fascinated with it ever since I showed up in the unit. And a lot of cases that nobody's heard of before. And I think it's really good. So Disney's excited about it. I haven't signed with them yet. So my agent is still working on terms, and we're shopping it around a little bit. Maybe I really shouldn't say that, but
okay.
Yeah, so there's a deal in the works. I'm going to do it for sure.
Okay.
It's just a question of who. I love the people I work with at Disney. They were fantastic. And so book number 2 is in the works. I've already started the writing, and I think people will really like it.
And then where can they follow you and purchase your other book?
Matt Murphy Law on Instagram. And I've got my book's called The Book of Murder. It's available on Amazon, Disney Books, Barnes & Noble. There's also, I should plug these guys. There's a little mom and pop brick and mortar bookstore in Manhattan Beach called Pages, a bookstore.
Oh, yeah.
And I love those guys. So in fact, I'm going in tomorrow. I'm going to sign some more books.
Okay.
They have been wonderful. And this is a funny thing. I didn't know this as an author. I think the nicest people, they say the nicest people in the world are the Irish, right? The nicest people in the world are American bookstore owners.
Yes.
Like you go in there, they're the nicest people, and they're grateful when you're there as an author. And so I had so much fun on my bookstore or my book tour, going to these random bookstores like in Utah, and like they are so excited to see you, and they're so nice to you.
Was
and
fun.
they're
I remember that.
Yeah,
too.
right.
Yeah.
So my local is pagesabookstore.com in Manhattan Beach. The nicest humans on the planet, I think. And they've been great. So you can get a signed copy of The Book of Murder at Pages, a bookstore.
Well, thank you, Matt. That's Matt Murphy, everybody. Follow him at Matt Murphy Law.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.